voice. There we are. Great. It's good to be here. How is everyone today? Awesome. Yeah, that's it. So, I have a question for you. We have an answer. Awesome, I love that. Good. What does extraordinary leadership have to do with managing and attracting 4 generations into the workplace and into your business? Why would I start there? Repeat the question. Okay. So why would I start with a video on extraordinary leadership? Clearly there are 4 generations in it. Why would I start with outrageous, extraordinary leaders to talk to you about the 4 generations and bridging the gap? First time in the history of the world, actually, where we had 4 generations in the workplace. There are people around your conference table that some were born in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, some were born in the 1980s. 4 generations. Why would I start with leadership? Inspiration. Inspiration. Good.
Because you could be a leader no matter what group you're in.
Excellent. You're a leader whether you were running the Northeast Territory for your hotel, and you have to work with those generations inside your business. You have to work with those generations as customers. You see, we're intersecting with the 4 generations all the time, and it requires fundamental and yet extraordinary leadership. You see, leadership is about inspiring people. Leadership is about listening to people. You see, when we were born, we were really at our best listening levels. We had not been hearing, all we had was hearing, right? We came out, we were pretty good. We recognized people, we recognized music. It's a funny thing that happens in life. We get so bad at listening that the universe actually takes away our listening as we age. We have to actually get hearing aids so we can hear. Because we never, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So, it's very interesting, and I want you to know that I'm going to spend some time talking about generations. I'm going to spend some time talking about how to manage them more effectively and manage your business, whatever you do, your territory, if you manage the entire business. It doesn't matter, it's all applicable. You're going to have to weave it against your outcomes, what you're responsible for delivering. So, there is one warning. When we talk about generations, it's not about stereotyping. So it's not about saying, well, you're from the traditionalist generation, you guys are still stuck in the Great Depression. And, so you're not willing to change. Because in that generation, they had the kinds of monumental change that gave them certain beliefs and ultimately behaviors that caused them to make decisions and choices for the rest of their life. You see, generations aren't really about the years. Even though it's a very quantifiable way to look at it, they're about the human condition. They're about the events, the conditions, and the experiences an individual had that shaped them. And that impacts their buying decisions. That impacts how they participate in your business, how they participate at a sales meeting, how they participate when they're out at a trade show, how they participate with one-on-one with a customer. And all of it in the end is really about leadership. It's about how do you want to participate. Do you want to inspire customers to come and come to your hotel and stay with you? Or do you want to hope? Hope isn't a strategy for those of you who aren't familiar with that. There's some people I'd like to discuss at a higher level, closer to Washington, D.C., about hope and the strategy thing. So we have to move towards what we want to accomplish. And 4 generations actually give us an extraordinary gift, not necessarily the challenges that many of us face. You see, the boomers, being the largest generation out there, and the biggest buying generation at this time, though millennials are gaining on them. They think shopping is a sport. Right? $190 million a year between the ages of 12 and 17. That's what they spent last year. $190 million. They don't even work. I'm like, I want to be part of those guys. So we have to really look at what are these things that are shaping them. And I will tell you, I am going to touch on the millennials today. And yet, at the same time, the fact of the matter is that the millennials will likely change. Why do you think they're going to start having some different patterns in their lives?
Because they have to earn the money.
They have to earn the money. Spoken like a father. Yes, they have to earn the money. It's actually, if you think about the human condition and the events and experiences that this younger generation is about to have, it's almost like history repeating itself with the traditionalists. The traditionalists were born in there's 1900s is what they like to say, and I start with the 1920 and go to 44. But they lived through 2 world wars. They lived through the Great Depression. Their heroes were John Wayne, FDR. Their heroes were Americans who led to the future, who stood for America. Pat Boone. Pat Boone was a singer for the millennials in the room. I don't know any of his music. I just want you to know. I don't know any of his music. But I heard it from someone. And anyway, so this generation experienced, obviously, the Great Depression. And so their motto is to, pack rat it. They're pack rats because you got to save it for a rainy day. You got to be careful. And because you just don't know what could happen. So it creates a conservative buying environment. The beautiful thing about traditionals, especially for those of you who have brands, is that, okay, you and I are going to have to break up. Go ahead, do your thing. that the traditionals are loyal. This is a generation that over 50% of them fought in a world war. Over 50%. Now, think of the impact on their families, all those families that went to war, all those families that lost people. So the connection is they stand for America. This is the most patriotic, by far, generation. This is a generation that stands for loyalty. So, when you're talking to this generation, when you're presenting to this generation, when you're marketing to this generation, talk about your loyalty program. Talk about recognizing them for coming back. You see, the Xers, they don't care if you recognize them. Just don't screw up their vacation. Right? Where with the traditional, they're more structured. They're about honor. That's where they come from. That's their human condition and experience. So when you're strategizing from a marketing standpoint, when you're looking at how to pitch someone, right, you're going to pitch a contract, you want to understand. Because, you see, another important thing about traditionals, they don't share their stuff. They weren't doing therapy. They don't get together and like do, I've been feeling a little like this. How are you feeling? That doesn't happen. That's not how their universe really operated. So it's more about the formalities. So your proposal would be formal. Your proposal would be very clear, succinct, and specific. Okay, so that's a little bit about your traditionals.